We're the Cole guys. I'm George.
And I'm David.
We're filming another episode here at Dick Dyer Mercedes. We're joined with our great friend Chip Huggins. He's been in the South Carolina House of Representatives now and is finishing up his final term. He's been there for 23 years.
The Cole Guys isn't your average real estate podcast.
Our mission is to give buyers and sellers the power of knowledge through their real estate transactions.
We do this by helping first-time homebuyers realize that there are more expenses that come with owning a home than just the loan.
We also understand there are many times move-up buyers and sellers have forgotten the process because it's been so long since their last real estate transaction.
We make the downsizing easy.
Once you get into the habit of working with us, the process becomes so smooth you won't mind to move.
We are also excited to share with you what all the Midlands has to offer.
This episode is brought to you by Dick Dyer Mercedes-Benz, the first Mercedes-Benz in South Carolina.
Well, Chip, we're going to pick back up here with, you mentioned it takes a while to become a senior lawmaker in this South Carolina state legislature because you have to get elected multiple times to move up the ranks. Kind of talk to us a little bit about that process and, what's it like being a junior lawmaker, and as you are fortunate enough to be, reelected into, that same position and you accrue seniority. Talk to us about that process and what's your ability to make an even greater difference the longer you stay there.
Yeah, and I really appreciate this question because it's something that we see a lot of. And let me tell you what, I respect whichever person's down there and whatever stance they have, I respect it because I know what they had to go through. And when your district chooses to let you go there, that says a lot. I mean, it really does, and that's why I'm so humbly honored because I can't believe my district sent me back that many times. I mean, I say that I hope we've worked ourselves to death to do the best job they could have gotten done for them. Same token, they pull those blocks, and if you don't do sort of the line of the things that they're expecting, and you don't keep your word, that's one of the biggest pet peeves I have is for word keeping. And I hope there's any message I can do. And I did my floor speech at the end of session. That was probably the one thing I hammered the most. Whoever's out there, no matter what stance and no matter what party you are, keep your word and
Yes.
Don't ever go against that word. And that's one of the best things you can keep down there, I can tell you. But going back to the sense of it, you run on certain, stances, certain, if you want to call them, whatever your platform is. And if you do those, you need to remember those, only because your district will. Not everybody pays attention, but I can tell you in District 85 they do.
Yeah.
And they can certainly remember those mail pieces and whatever you might do. And so you just need to be mindful of that if you ran on pro-life or you ran on, Second Amendment or you ran on, economy, whatever it might be. I remember when I ran initially, vouchers were a big thing.
Yes.
And remarkably, I remember meeting at Irmo Elementary School and having a conversation with a group of teachers from over the district. And once we talked it through and they understood where it was coming from, they were pretty much, I think, in line with the thinking. So, but having those kind of conversations and knowing what the district that you're about to try to represent wants and is looking for in you, knowing what your issues are important to you. I'll give you, for instance, going back to real estate, because I've been in the real estate, the seller property disclosure, that was my bill, and we were very thankful because that was a big issue to me.
Yes.
Nick Cremitis helped unbelievably with it, but we had to go around 2 times with that because I was a freshman, and I had one senior senator who just putting me through it, just to do it as a learning experience, where I didn't come over and talk to him.
Yes, sir.
And had I gone over and talked to him, we wouldn't have had to go round 1 probably. But once I did, we got that bill passed through very quickly. And so those kinds of things to somebody coming in are very important. Now, not everybody, and again, I get it. I mean, I'm not, I don't want anyone to not stand their ground and stand up for the people that have sent you down there. But if you don't have some degree of working together and being able to get along, it will make it very difficult. The part of being able to have, and I'm just using, and I've been totally on the term limit part if it's fair, if it's looking at things that are fair. But then I'll go back to using Tim Scott for an example right now. Tim's got seniority now, and his staff has got seniority. And when you have someone like the other day that needed to get over to England with a visa and some help with some other things, their office can really help with the expediting of that because he's got the seniority he has.
Yes, sir.
He's not doing his job. If you've forgotten about your people because you've been there too long, now that's another story.
Yeah.
Then you need to vote whoever that is out of there. And that, I hope, doesn't happen very often. But if it does, those are the kinds of things that people need to be irritated by. If somebody's not returning their phone call, if they're not returning their email, if they're not sending their text back or whatever it might be and responding to their people, then that poses another situation. Good thing in the House of Representatives, you're elected every 2 years.
Yes, sir.
And I do believe if my district had not wanted me back, they would have found a way to get me not in there. So Senate's in for 4 years. Now, on the federal level, Congress is only in for every 2 years.
Yes, sir.
The Senate's in for 6 years. So, that part, at least 6 years and 4 years, does give you an opportunity to probably, I won't say you still don't breathe in this business in the sense of that. Even when I always felt like I had 10 people running against me and I ran that way.
Yeah.
And so I think from the perspective of just remembering the term and what you want to accomplish in that term, putting a plan together, and like we were very proud in 2015 to pass the South Carolina Overdose Prevention Act. That came about exclusively by our district. One of the folks in Chapin had lost their child, which just absolutely broke our heart. One of the folks that were close to them happened to be in Maryland and saw Maryland had just passed the Maryland Overdose Prevention Act, and we mirrored that here in South Carolina. And I just use that as an example because that bill was the epitome of how important it was to have good working relationships with your other members, with your committee folks, with the agencies, because there was not many of them that weren't touched by that piece of legislation.
Yes, sir.
They're really touched by it now. So if you don't have a good working relationship, it just makes it very difficult, number one, for when the speaker, he still makes the committee decisions. And if you probably haven't at least tried to work together, he remembers that.
Yes, sir.
And we've got a speaker now that will really remember that, which is good. I'm excited about Merle. I think he'll be great, and I hope he'll be there for some time. Jay Lucas, I've been so fortunate with the speakers I had. David Wilkins, my goodness, he was unbelievable. Bobby Harrell, I got along great with Bobby. Certainly Jay Lucas, oh my goodness. But all these guys are great, and they do. I mean, that's an exorbitant amount of time for the little bit they get out of that, too.
Yes.
So I hope that sort of answers.
Definitely.
Yes, sir.
So you had talked about remembering why you got into office, remembering the people who voted you in and the reasons for their doing so. When you first got into office, social media wasn't a problem. Since you've been in office, social media platforms have exploded into something probably nobody could even have seen it becoming. How has that changed the landscape of both running for a re-election, but at the same time, how quickly does it give people the opportunity to really turn against you in a mass if they want to do so using social media?
Absolutely. Yes, I have seen a big change, and I've witnessed just in the course of the 23 years, we've had to have several, I call them clinics, on this very thing, with advisement on what to do and what not to do. I mean, the lawsuits and the other things that can come about. But yes, it can turn very quickly, and turning it off is very hard. We had a big issue. I'm not going to use the example, but I'm just going to tell you this. Not long ago, that dealt with an issue that was going on. All of a sudden, my phone just started blowing up, if you want to call the term blowing up. I mean, it was blowing up. And it was a Saturday morning, started about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, it was just it got worse and worse and worse and worse. Fortunately, someone with a lot of credibility, it was not something on me. I don't want to give you, I've never been in that sandstorm. I hope I never get in that sandstorm. But this was something that could have become potentially unbelievable. And fortunately, a person that's very good at what they do in that realm diffused it and shared the real truth, which I think is always very important. Because I've had plenty of campaigns, believe me, where someone tried to paint something on you and you had to go back. And I mean, I had to get an audit one time on my account for one of the opponents that I had. And so you go through things like that and being able to dispel them and quickly, where, you know, especially if there's non-truths, if it's something that's being spread that's absolutely a cancer, and if you can put it to bed, I think the quicker the better. And I think it's best if you can just absolutely lay the truth on the line, because I hope I don't have anything to hide, so I just lay it out there. We've had numerous times where I have on Facebook or I have on Twitter, you know, where I'll have a question back on something that'll be pointed and be, you know, direct, and I'll just go right back with the absolute answer, and that typically makes it go away. That doesn't always mean it will, but it does have an influence. We get really challenged these days with the different factions that are out there. I'll give a prime example. The last presidential election, for instance, one of the entities that's a major player in the social media, they gave the most money and not to every state. And they did it based on counties, and they did it based on party in that county. And I'm gonna tell you, those kinds of things, you know, worry you. I hope we can get to some type of real meaningful meaning passed, either on the federal level or the state level, for this dark money that goes into things. Because I have no problem if somebody, you know, look, this is America, and if I run and you want to run against me and you want to put your things out there, but, you know, don't do it trying to cover up. I mean, let's just say who's paying for it, you know, and put it out there, and I would want you to know, just, you know, but there are people out there that don't, and there's some mixed emotions on it, and so I hope we can have some real good discussions to try to make that as good as it can be. But we get into lots of things now with just name calling, gender calling, lots of the things that we are faced with, and where this is going to go, I hope we can have some way of reining it in, because it's pretty much out of control right now.
So Chip, you served for 23 very distinguished years, and I know a couple months ago when you announced that you were not seeking re-election, that had to be a very important time in your life to have come to that conclusion that, you know, my time is up and I need to pass the baton on. What was behind that decision to finally, you know, let somebody else, you know, represent the IRMO community after such a long period of service? And, you know, what would you give them as advice for, you know, taking up the reins and moving forward?
Yeah, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share this. I mean, I haven't shared it with a whole lot of people, just in the sense of, you know, the reality of it. Thank the Lord, it was not for health. It was not for some illegal or something bad. You know, I'm a prayerful guy, and I can't sit here and say I've always been that way, but I've been trying very hard to get closer to the big man up here. And we started really asking him and talking to him and trying to just ask for the guidance and the wisdom from him. And I want to tell you this, we're blessed with some of the people that we serve with, and Nathan Valentine. But, you know, Ronnie Cromer is just amazing, and Dick Harpootlian. I and we got some great friends and people both sides of the aisle. And but you know, we talk collectively and just talking, and so I prayed, and then my granddaughter was born. That was number one. Boy, that one hit me. So I'm like, whoa, okay, Lord, you're waking me up here. So we had that happen. And then I had a couple of opportunities that still, some of them are out there, and we'll see where all that goes, that hit me. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe I will have something to do after this thing is over. And then the volume. We had this abortion issue, which I'm very pro-life, but it's been a beast. I mean, for me, we have a very active email group. My office is fully staffed, and they can tell you the volume with that. And then we had a number of issues we had during the session. So, you know, with all that, I kind of said, okay, how much can you do? And then I had a little bit of a change with my work that I did with my full-time job. And that ended up working out where it made me even have second thoughts. But then I thought about it, and I said, no, you know, I think it's time. And so it has been. I've known that with the bottom of my heart. And so it's really those 5 things that let me know for sure.
Yes,
I think
sir.
God really told me that it was time to do this. And I've gotten to know Jay. We've gone. I've tried to take him to what I can. I'm also trying not to wear him out, because he's gonna hit the ground running when he gets sworn in enough. Because just learning the block building and the campus of the State House in itself will be a lot.
Yes, sir.
I joke with people candidly, is I still don't really know what I'm doing, and it's that way, because it's so. It comes at you pretty quick. So he's going to get hit with a lot. I'm going to be there to try to help him anyway. The good thing is I'm close by now, at least where I'm located.
Yes.
We've got a new chairman that we've already chosen in the regulations and administrative procedures, Jeff Bradley. We're going to have some real changes that Jay's going to see. He's going to have a new Ways and Means chairman. You're going to have a new education chairman, and you're probably going to have a new judiciary chairman. And so he's stepping in, but he's going to have great leadership with Merle Smith. So Merle will rein all that in. And I hope Jay will just take a pause, stand up for what he stands for, and learn the people there. And so he can serve the district, because he's going to have a lot of people expecting a lot of things. And the good thing is he's campaigned. I mean, he did campaign. He had a pretty hard campaign. He had, you know, a number of people running in that race.
Yes,
so you learn kind of what hopefully the district is looking for. He's probably got a good feel for that. And you just don't ever want to forget the people that send you there, you know, and the people that work so hard for you to get you there. I hope I never did that, and I hope I never will. I hope I'll continue to thank them for allowing and sticking with me.
Yes, sir.
Well, we really can't thank you enough, Chip, for joining us today and for your service to the state as a whole, but then the community in Irmo and Columbia as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I want to thank you all for what you do to keep this economy moving. And it's so important. So just thank you for all you do. Thanks for letting me be here.
Appreciate it.